We're here at the Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory near Cambridge, Ontario. It's a beautiful place. Feels like we're in the tropics. It's warm and the butterflies are floating around and the plants are just marvelous. It's a beautiful setting. My name is Palmer Becker. I'm the primary author of a process called Begin Anew. We've used the butterfly as a symbol of a new life that we feel can come to us and to the church. I'm especially interested in the process of transformation or metamorphosis of what's needed for a beautiful butterfly to emerge from a larva, from a worm. We're living in challenging times. As I visit with people and go to churches and even the denomination, we're troubled. Old systems aren't working anymore. Traditional beliefs are being questioned. And people are leaving the church, especially young people. And yet there is a search for community. There's a hunger to belong. There's a keen desire for something new to emerge. There come times in our life when it's just appropriate to make a new beginning. What's your situation? Perhaps you've gone through a crisis. Plans for study didn't work out, or you've lost your job, or maybe even gone bankrupt or gone through a divorce. Those are times when we need to make a new beginning. I believe the process of Begin Anew has been prepared for you. Or maybe it's come more slowly. You grew up in the church, but you allowed things to slip. And now you're not sure what you believe, or you're not sure where you belong. And yet you have that keen desire for a community, to belong, for something new to happen in your life. Begin Anew is a process to help us to develop our spiritual life more fully and to become mature in our spiritual life. And then Begin Anew is a process that will help us to find God's will for our lives. I hope that at the end of this process, you'll be able to put your finger on something and say, this is what God has made me for. I've been fascinated by what Andlin, my naturalist guide here, has been telling me about the 4 stages of a butterfly's life. And I'd like to make some parallels or comparisons to the 4 stages in the Begin Anew process. So could you tell me something about the first stage? You said it was the egg stage?
Yes, so both butterflies and moths, which are quite similar, both start as a rather tiny egg. There's 3 here on the leaf. Sometimes they're often even smaller than that. They can be the size of the head of a pin.
Wow, that's
and
tiny.
They're in the egg for anywhere from 3 to 5 days. It's actually not super long.
Okay. Well, just like the egg of a butterfly is the beginning of a process and very small, so in the Begin Anew process, we begin with beliefs. They are foundational. If we don't get our beliefs right, I'm not sure what kind of a butterfly we're going to find. And you say they go through stages where they have to molt or break out of their skin and come out.
Yeah, they kind of have to pause for a little bit sometimes during eating. They'll go very still for sometimes as much as 24 hours, and there's changes starting to take place inside. And then all of a sudden their outer skin splits. They have to kind of wriggle forward out of the old skin, and then all of a sudden they're a bit bigger, and then they stretch out into their new skin, and away they go again.
Frankly, that reminds me kind of the way the church is. We grow by stages.
There you go.
Sometimes the first stage is you just think of it as a building. Next stage is, well, you think about it as an organization. We want to go to another stage where you see it as a people, a family.
Or community.
Community, where there's love and care and support for each other.
Awesome.
So just like what you call it a larva?
Yes, larva is the scientific word for the eating, growing stage of the animal.
Okay. Incidentally, people do a lot of eating in the church too.
Yeah.
And something they just take in and take in and take in. They don't get much work done.
Okay.
So we need to go to the next stage. So what's the
next
third stage in the life of the
Sure.
caterpillar?
So after this caterpillar is done molting 5 times and it's as big as it's going to get, it then undergoes an even bigger change where it spins silk around itself and it will make a cocoon. So I'm just going to put this down for a minute. So,
Can you show me a cocoon?
yeah, I got one right here.
Oh,
So
wow.
the cocoon is actually referring to the silken covering around the outside. But inside, you can even see just a hint of it. The little brown inside is the pupa,
Okay.
which means the caterpillar has shed its last skin. It's kind of shriveled up. It's dormant or quiescent for a little while, up to 2 to 3 weeks. And all the changes are taking place inside its body. It's growing the wings, developing different eyes, different mouth, pretty much a whole different body.
In one sense, it looks like it's just dormant. It's just sleeping
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, some
But
people,
yet there's a lot of action that's happening in there.
there's a lot of inside changes and metabolism and things we don't even understand going on inside there, yeah.
You call it metamorphosis?
Yes,
Or
that
kind of-
metamorphosis is just the big fancy term for a crazy change from one thing to another that doesn't even look like it would be the same thing.
Okay. Unit 3 in our Begin Anew process is somewhat similar to this. It's a time to pull back, but major changes are happening in our lives. Introduces us to four practices. Practice of Bible reading, practice of prayer, practice of generous living, practice of becoming a part of a small group where you really have good friends and support and accountability. And those practices can't change us, they can't transform us, but they can bring us into the presence of God who can change us. So we think of stage 3 as a time when transformation is happening in our lives and we can come out of the cocoon, come out into life, into society, and hopefully make a difference by our beauty or by our action or something. And that takes us to stage 4.
Yeah, we do have an adult moth that came out last night.
Oh, really?
Let me see if I can find it. It is okay for me to gently hold them or touch them. So this is the adult form. That caterpillar that we were just looking at came out of this the cocoon last night, had to open its wings.
That's a miracle. How in the world a larva can be transformed into something that looks so different. And
Yeah, for
so-
sure. Yeah, let's get the caterpillars side by side.
Yeah.
Yeah, from small to quite large.
Okay. So that's the transformation we're looking for in our lives and in our churches. And I appreciate very much your
Yeah.
explanation of these 4 stages. They're great.
My pleasure, not a problem.
So what is your concept of God? I would encourage you to get into teams or groups of 3 and each share your concept of God with each other and make that a foundation. You'll find question number 2 in this first session interesting, is how can we know that God exists? There are 6 clues here. The first 3 have to do with the more rational, more scientific ways of knowing God. And the last 3 have to do with how God has revealed himself. I believe we need to keep science and revelation, reason and revelation together. And so I encourage you to have a good discussion on how you believe that, have come to the belief that God exists. The third question is, what does the Bible tell us about God? What is God's nature? You probably won't be able to spend a lot of time on that. Maybe you'll want to study that on your own. The Confession of Faith has even more than the 8 things that we talk about here in terms of God. Save time for the last question. It is, what kind of a parent is your God? What kind of a father is your God? Or what kind of a mother is your God? Often we have hangovers, and if our God was, or if our father was non-active, absent, we might have a concept of God like that. On the other hand, if your mother was very aggressive and and very demanding, you might have a concept of God like that. So we need to get our concept of God from Jesus Christ. If you want to know what God is like, take a good look at Jesus. We'll be looking at that in our next session. And incidentally, each week or each session, I will try to highlight the key point of that session and make it as this is the most important thing in the world, and then your leader will help you to discuss that and explore it. We won't always be in the Butterfly Conservatory. We're going to be in different churches or business places that help us to know how to bring relevancy to our life. How can we make our beliefs and our belonging and our becoming and our behaving in active, joyful, vigorous ways?